Question number 4. Do you believe Tess is a heroine? Why or why not? I believe Tess is not a heroine because of how a heroine is defined. Four strong qualities that a heroine must possess is being a legendary woman, having great strength, being admired, and loved for achievements and qualities. While Tess does possess some of these, the first one, being a legendary woman, almost implies perfection. But because Tess has weaknesses, she can never live up to this perfect image. Some of the qualities that Tess does possess that are good or positive is her biggest one being a working woman, or her strength. For her outer strength, when she works at Marlowe, Flintcomb Ash, and Talbothy's, Tess does jobs that usually only men can do. For example, when she's at Flintcomb Ash, her boss, who's trying to get back at her or really push her down, assigns her one of the harder jobs meant for a man, assuming that she will give up or ask for a break. But instead, because of Tess's hard head, she stays in this position the whole day, going from before the sun rises to past sunset, proving him wrong, but also showing her outward strength. For her inner strength, she works for her family very hard. She tries her hardest to find a supportive man who her family can rely on for funds or money. She helps them deliver products, like in the beginning of the book. And she also watches out for her siblings, but not only that, watches out for her parents. When her parents fall short, can't get enough money, can't find a job, or rely too much on their family name to think they can slack off, Tess fills in the holes. She never lets them fail or fall too far without her being there to support them. That shows her inner strength that very few people possess. Tess is also very highly admired. Her admiration comes from her outward beauty, so all eyes are on her wherever she goes, especially by the men. All eyes are also on her by the women too, but not out of love for her beauty, but out of jealousy for it. For example, Reddy, Marian, and Iz at the dairy farm are all extremely jealous of her looks, especially the attention she gets from Claire and other men that they're obsessed with. This follows her wherever she goes, but she is admired like the qualities of a heroine require. Tess, though, has a lot more weaknesses than she does strengths. One of her biggest weaknesses is her big ego. She won't ask for help when it's in her best interest no matter what. For example, when she needs money, instead of going and asking for it from Angel's father, she works for it. This is successful for a little while until she gets to a point where she needs it more than anything, but chickens out at the last minute when she arrives in the town and learns that Angel's family never wanted them to marry Tess in the first place. This weakness sets her back very far to a place where she has trouble recovering from. Tess is also ignorant and blissfully unaware, two qualities that very few people possess and are very, very harmful to her life. An example is when Alec is coming on to her and she's unaware that he's trying to imply that they're going to have sex. Obviously, she was drugged, so this wasn't fully her fault, but her ignorance gets her into trouble. She also tries to find the easiest way out of everything she does in some cases. For example, when Angel finds out about her past and the baby and that she slept with another man, her first reaction is she volunteers to kill herself. This so she doesn't have to see how other people react to this trauma, see how he reacts to this trauma, or her sins committed. She thinks killing herself is going to get her out of all the turmoil that's going to follow. Instead, she doesn't, but that's her first solution, because she thinks killing herself is just going to cause more trouble for Angel, which is her only excuse why not to. She also kills the only man who's in her way. She kills Alec, who is the only roadblock left to her truly loving Angel. This obviously was not the correct solution because they still don't end up together, but it was her quickest way out as she saw it at the time. While Tess is admired and that is a positive attribute, it's also a negative attribute of hers. She shames herself on her looks throughout the whole thing and lacks confidence in the novel, which is shown constantly over and over again when she covers up her face with her bonnet or she shaves off her eyebrows so she's not as physically appealing to the men. She doesn't use this beauty for good, she tries to hide it instead. Tess is also the town gossip wherever she goes, so while she is admired, everyone is always talking about her. For example, when she's in Marlowe, they are always talking about whether she has her failed marriage or the dead baby. Nothing ever good comes out of their mouths about Tess. She's always negative gossip in towns. This not really fitting under the proper qualities of a heroine. Tess also never achieves anything. One of the big qualities of a heroine is being loved for your achievements and goals. And instead, Tess never finds solid work, and she never finds a solid husband. So she never has steady income for her family, for herself, and for all of their well-beings. This results in her failure to save her family, which is her main goal in the novel at all times because of how much she cares for them. But instead, she can't do that. She also never holds up this proper family name that her father and mother want her to. Instead, she hides from it. So none of her goals or even other people's goals are held up by Tess. All of these weaknesses show that Tess isn't perfect. Well, no one is. But Tess is not a legendary woman, which means she's not a heroine because she fails to fulfill all the qualities that they possess. Question number 5. What is significant about the structure of the novel? Something very unique to this book is that it's separated into phases and not just chapters. Each phase has a different title. It's The Maiden, Maiden No More, The Rally, The Consequence, The Woman Pays, The Convert, and Fulfillment. These phases each signify a special point in Tess's life. The things that are unique about them are that each one has its own problem and kind of section of Tess's life. They represent the phases of Tess's life, which is why I presume they are called phases. It shows how Tess learns, adapts, and changes. So, for example, in the first one, when she's the maiden, Tess here learns about her family's name. She also starts on a path that really changes how the rest of her life goes. For example, when she kills her horse, Tess then has to fix her family problem by going off with Alec, which then kind of tumbles into the rest of the novel. But the small details that happen in the beginning of this phase really kind of shape the rest of her life. And that kind of goes for the rest of them too. Each event that happens in a different phase then shapes the next one. Another example is when she marries Angel. This takes up a whole phase and really spins out of control in the end when they have to separate for a while because of Tess's past sins. There's also another phase where she spends the whole time alone, without Angel, without a man to support her, and she has to be on her own. Each one is very, very unique in its own sense, but also has very many similarities that they all have a part where there's tragedy or a conflict for Tess to overcome. Another interesting piece about the structure of the book is that Tess always ends up returning home eventually. She always comes home back after a major tragedy, like the rape or her failed marriage, or when her mom and dad are sick. This reminds us that everything Tess does is for her family, like going off to marry Alec, or trying to find a new husband, trying to find a steady income, going to Flintcomb Ash to find more wages. Tess suffers for the goodness of her family, and this helps remind us that's what she's doing by the structure of the novel. Another form of structure that the novel takes on is the structure of language. Tess is very well educated thanks to her parents and Tess's determination before the book even begins. But when Tess speaks to her family, specifically her mom, her language is very different than when she speaks to other people in her life. When she does this, she kind of dumbs down her words almost because her mom is not as well educated as she is, so she speaks with their dialect. When she speaks with Angel or when she speaks with Alec, her language also changes. When she speaks with Alec, it's very harsh and cold, versus with Angel, it's very warm but also guarded, because her love for each man is very different. This language structure also is a representation of where Tess is in her life. Maybe not where she is location-wise or where she is with conflicts, but who she's with. You can always tell who Tess is speaking to by the way she is speaking, what kind of word choice she uses, how well her grammar is, whether she's being harsh, cold, or loving and warming. This changes throughout the novel, and we can always tell her feelings towards the opposite person depending on the word choice of Tess. So, in reference to language and the phases, this novel has a very independent way of structuring itself in comparison to other books. As you can see, the way the author chooses to write his book really represents the plot line and the characters used in his novel.